How's it going, everyone? This is Mitchell Mander here, and welcome to the final episode review of Pokemon Journeys on this channel for episode 136. Now, I know we have 11 additional episodes in 2023, and we also have a special episode airing next week. And even though Ash has his Journeys outfit in those 11 episodes in early 2023, this to me is the final Journeys episode, and effectively concludes the Journeys era of the Pokemon anime, with Ash, Go, and Koharu going their separate ways at the end of this series, or the end of this episode, I should say. So, how was this episode? Well, before I get into that, you guys know the drill. If you like this type of content, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. It'd be pretty awesome if you do that. But let's talk about this episode now, shall we? So this episode begins where last week's episode ended off at, with Ash and Go engaging Lugia in a battle. Now, they don't really end up doing a whole lot to Lugia. There's one cool scene where Cinderace basically kicked Pikachu right into Lugia, but it doesn't seem to do a whole lot of damage. And then Go actually tries to catch Lugia, but Lugia's like, nope, and incinerates his Pokeball immediately, which I thought was pretty funny. But anyways, due to their battle, they're standing towards a cliff, and the ground below them breaks off, and they're basically falling off this cliff. And that's when Lugia ends up saving Ash and Go and takes them on another ride, just like he did back in episode 2. And this sequence was actually really cool, where we have Ash and Go on Lugia. They're flying around. There's a few cameos here. We have Jigglypuff cameoing here. Still got its microphone, which I thought was kind of funny. We have Ho-Oh make an appearance here, which I thought was really cool. So we have Lugia and Ho-Oh at the same time in this episode. So that's awesome. And even frickin' Mewtwo cameoed here. The first time I watched the episode, I didn't catch it, but when I watched it the second time, I saw it in the background. I'm like, whoa, wait a second, what's that back there? It's literally Mewtwo transporting his Pokemon again. I guess something happened where he was staying at and humans maybe invaded, so he decided to take the Pokemon and just get out of there. But yeah, Ash and Go on a joyride on Lugia, which I thought was funny because, like, Koharu didn't get to experience any of this like usual, but when Ash and Go arrive on Lugia, she's actually super happy to see them, and she doesn't seem like super like freaked out or surprised. It's a subtle throwback to episode 2 when Go was like, hey, we rode on Lugia today, and she's like, oh yeah, sure, you know, you got some homework to do, you should probably concentrate on that and not fantasize about riding on Lugia or something like that. I don't know, it's just a subtle change in her character, and it shows how she's changed since the beginning of the series. But anyways, with Ash and Go leaving the Sakuragi Labs, they were wondering who's going to replace them as research fellows. Well, it turns out they got one replacement, and that's Koharu herself. Yes, Koharu is becoming a research fellow, and she's going to be doing research assignments for her father. So she's going to be traveling around the world now, which I thought was pretty neat. It should have happened earlier in the series, in my opinion, but I guess this is a decent way to conclude her character, so she can go off, do these missions, and maybe learn more about Eevee and what Eevee wants to be in the future, which admittedly didn't get a conclusion here, unfortunately. Oh, and Team Rocket met up with Giovanni, which it was a pretty decent scene, but not the biggest thing in this episode, so Team Rocket aren't out of the picture just yet. I'm pretty sure they're going to be appearing in the 11 episodes that are airing in early 2023. And then we'll probably see a conclusion to their characters within those episodes. Now, before they leave, a surprise party is thrown for Ash and Go, in which Koharu and her family, Go's family, Ash's mom, Professor Oak, are there to celebrate and just have a party with them before they leave. And then the next day comes, and Ash and Go depart. They officially leave their jobs as research fellows, and they depart the Sakuragi Labs. Now, before Ash and Go separate, Team Rocket shows up and tries to steal Pikachu again for the millionth time. And for some reason, Morpeko decides to break Pikachu out, and then Pikachu blasts them off. So that's it for Team Rocket and Journeys. They just get blasted off at the end. At least we didn't get to see the Gotcha Machine again. And then finally, we come to the crossroad where Ash and Go their separate ways. And that's when the opening kicks in, and we get a montage of some of Journey's main highlights throughout the series. And then we get quite a few cameos and interesting moments towards the end of this episode. So some interesting moments towards the end of this episode include Gary taking Tokyo to Professor Oak's lab and meeting Professor Oak. I thought that was pretty neat. We have Hop versus B, and Leon is actually refereeing the match, which I thought was really neat. Then we have Go meeting Misty, which definitely should have happened within Journeys, but I'll take it, I guess. And then we have Ash reuniting with his Butterfree. What the heck? I literally did not see that coming from a mile away. That actually probably was the craziest thing we see in this epilogue. I mean, you see Tsurugi and Asahi. They're on another mission, doing whatever, maybe doing another Project Mu thing for the future. And then finally, you have Delia just cleaning the house, and you have some new pictures there, which I thought was interesting with Ash and Leon, and then the party. And then at the very end, we have the last shot of Koharu doing her own thing, Go doing his own thing, and Ash battling someone. So overall, I thought this was a decent ending to the Journey series. I don't think that this is the best series finale for a Pokemon series. In my opinion, both Sun and Moon and X and Y had a stronger series finale, especially Sun and Moon. The ending for Sun and Moon was really great. It was really emotional. It really felt like a genuine goodbye to that series. Whereas this, it's still pretty nice. I mean, the callback to the beginning of the series with Ash and Go riding on Lugia again, going on an even longer ride and meeting Ho-Oh, that's really cool. All the cameos we saw within this finale, obviously they couldn't include every single cameo within Journeys, but the ones we got were pretty nice. The party they had at the Sakuragi Labs for Ash and Go was alright. A lot of it was like still frame images, but oh well, I'll take it. I still wish we would have gotten like a party in Pallet Town when Ash won the World Championships. It'd be cool to just see everybody hanging out and having a good time hanging out with Ash. But I'll take this surprise party that we got in this episode. Now, I'm going to talk about how I feel each character was concluded within this series, starting with Koharu. So, I got to be completely honest, I'm kind of let down with how Koharu was handled towards the end of this series. I had pretty high expectations for her when she caught Eevee. I was expecting things to turn around for her, because prior to that, she was treated as a side character. The episodes she had were pretty nice, but there were times where she'd just disappear for episodes on end, like 4 or 5 episodes, then she'd come back for like a minor role. So she wasn't serving much purpose besides her focus episodes, which were few and far between. Then she caught Eevee, so I was thinking, okay, this is their way of kind of elevating her, making her more relevant. But unfortunately, yeah, it just didn't seem to work out. I'm going to be completely honest. Like, she doesn't know what she wants to do, just like her Eevee doesn't know what it wants to evolve into. I was hoping that by the end of this series, she'd figure it out, and maybe Eevee would choose its evolution, or just stay as an Eevee. But we really didn't get that conclusion. It kind of just dropped off after a while. I know in the previous episode, she talked about it briefly, but I just don't think that it was handled very well in this conclusion here. I'm not really satisfied with it. I wanted her to be a research fellow like a lot earlier, and it just feels like, oh hey, Ash and Go are leaving. Who's going to be the research fellow? Oh, Koharu is going to be it. She's taking that place. So yeah, I gotta say, very disappointed with how she was handled within the series and how her story ends. Maybe she'll show up in the 11-episode epilogue series. Who knows? Maybe they'll give her her goal within that, but as for this series, I'm kind of left a little disappointed. And next up we have Go, and I have to say I am pretty mixed when it comes to Go. On one hand, I like Go's personality because he is a very relatable character. I like that they designed a character that's relatable to people with social anxiety and have those types of issues where they have trouble making friends, they have trouble socializing with people, and I can relate. When I was a kid, I was a very quiet kid. I was shy. I didn't have a ton of friends as a kid, and I got made fun of a lot as a kid. So seeing them introduce a character like Go into the series, I can relate with them. And I like it. Making a relatable character is really nice for the Pokemon series. But I have to say, when it comes to how Go was handled, I'm kind of mixed. His goal was to capture Mew. That's what he wanted to do. In the beginning, that's the only Pokemon he wanted to catch. He's so fixated on that he doesn't care about any other Pokemon. Until Scorbunny comes in the mix. And then he decides, hey, instead of just catching Mew and Scorbunny, I'm going to catch every Pokemon, and then I'll catch Mew. On paper, this is actually kind of, what the series is about. You gotta catch them all. The problem is, there's no way that they could actually accomplish this within this series. The goal is just way too ambitious for this character. There's just no way it's going to happen. And while he has caught a lot of Pokemon, it feels like they kind of abandoned this halfway through, and he's been catching less and less Pokemon as Journeys has gone on. Which that leads to the second part of Go's goal, being Project Mew. In the latter half of Journeys, this became his main goal. And in concept, Project Mew is awesome. It's a completely original idea. It's original to the anime. It's really neat. You just do a bunch of missions, get a bunch of tokens for completing those missions. And some of these missions are crazy, like catching legendary Pokemon, for example. But then the whole goal is to go to the faraway island and to try and find Mew. And it just relates to Go's goal of catching Mew. So it sounds really nice. And some of the missions were actually really cool. There were some missions that I didn't really care for. The Articuno raid mission was a bit of a letdown, for example. But overall, in the beginning, I was actually pretty optimistic about Project Mew. I actually really liked it. And then we got the finale, and it just did not land. So Go decides to go on a journey to become stronger so that he can one day capture Mew or meet Mew again. I see what they're trying to do, but it does kind of, get in the way of kind of how the series is portrayed. Because unlike previous series, Ash and Go are equals. So, especially in the beginning, Go had as much focus as Ash. Sometimes he had more. So, it was going to be hard to see Go catch Mew. This had to be written just the right way in order to have it make sense. And he did have Mew for like a brief second in his hand. But yeah, just the way this was executed, it just left a sour taste in my mouth. So unfortunately for me, Go, it's kind of a mixed bag of a character, unfortunately. I kind of wish they would have done a little bit more with him, or did a little bit better with him as the series went on. And finally, we have our main protagonist for the Pokemon anime, Ash Ketchum himself. Now, admittedly, the road to Leon was a bumpy one. In the very beginning of Pokemon Journeys, if you remember way back when I was first reviewing it, I was a little worried about Ash and his focus within the series. I thought it was cool that he was a research fellow, but he didn't have a goal at the beginning. I get that they were trying to focus on Go first and get him established, but I was very worried in the beginning. Then the PWC was introduced in episode 12 and 13, and that really got me excited. I was really excited for this series and what they were going to do. The very first battle we had against Viscus was amazing. It's actually one of the best battles within Journeys. So I thought, hey, if every battle is going to be like this is going to be great. And unfortunately, no. There were some battles that were good, don't get me wrong. Like Viscus, for example. But then there were some battles that were kind of questionable, like the Volkner battle, for example. The last battle with B, Marnie, and even some of the Masters 8 battles, particularly Ash vs. Steven, were kind of not the best. Especially with Volkner and Steven, Ash won using a gimmick. Yeah, so not really the best thing most of the time, but the ending here landed in my opinion. Ash vs. Cynthia was great. Then we get Ash vs. Leon. And while there are some issues with this battle, I'll admit, the finale here, Pikachu vs. Charizard, amazing. Everything about that was amazing and well handled in my opinion. It led to a satisfying conclusion for Ash within this series with him winning the PWC, which leads into these 11 episodes that are ending off his character and his story as a whole. So I will say that PWC, maybe give it a 6 or 7 out of 10 overall. But the ending, unlike Project Muse, the ending here was amazing. Alrighty guys, I probably should end off the episode review here. I know the last few minutes I haven't really been talking about the episode, but since this is the last episode, I figured I'd talk about my feelings at the end of the series and just kind of how I feel about each character. I might actually make that end of Journeys review where I go a little bit more in depth with like everything and my final thoughts for the series. If you guys really want that, put it in the comment section down below. I'm kind of 50-50 on whether I want to do that still or not. But when it comes to this episode, it's a decent finale for the series. I'll give it like a 7 out of 10 or something like that. It's serviceable. It's nice. There's a lot of nice scenes within this episode. I do think things could have been handled a little bit better in certain parts. And it's definitely not as solid as the ending for Sun and Moon. But I enjoyed this episode still. So I guess we'll see what happens with next week's special episode and then the last 11 episodes with Ash Ketchum. So yeah. So guys, what do you think about this episode? What do you think about the ending for this series? Were you satisfied with it? Were you disappointed with it? Either way, I'd like to hear your thoughts. So post them in the comment section down below. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. And have a good day or night wherever you're at. And I'll see you all later. Bye.